Do you feel emotionally connected to your plants? As if in the process of caring for them, they as well are caring for you? What about planty DIYs and thrifting for plant items? If I have your attention, then the Plants by Wade Lee podcast is for you. Join me, plant friends, as we dig deep and experience the magic of plants. Hey, plant people. Welcome to the 22nd episode of the Plants by Wade Lee podcast. I am so honored to have author and plant lover Nick Cutsumpas, author of The Plant Coach. Have so many questions for you. I know that you have such a heart for environmentalism, and I definitely want to talk to you about that. Also, Farmer Nick Jr., I think this is amazing that you have a kids program as well, teaching kids about growing. Let's just get started, Nick, just to have you introduce yourself. You come from a corporate background that you were just realized that it was not feeding you the love of nature that you really, are so drawn to. Tell us a little bit about how this whole plant journey started for you.
Absolutely. Thanks so much for having me on the pod, Wade. Love it. And super excited to be a part of it. So,
Thank you.
yeah, everybody, my name is Nick Cutsumpas, also known as Farmer Nick. And I did not come into plants, from a young age. This was not something that I grew up doing with my mom or dad or anybody else in my family. They're not plant people. There was not a single plant in our home growing up, which I know is hard to believe. For me, it really started after college, and I just graduated from Tufts University back in 2014. And I'd been an athlete my whole life. I've been focused on playing baseball and basketball, baseball in college, and my whole identity was tied to this thing that I could
Right.
do. And then you graduate, and all of a sudden it's like, okay, like, who am I now? Like, what is my thing?
Right.
And my mom said, she goes, you know what, you're living at home while you're paying back your student loans. You got your job starting in the city, working for IBM, the biggest corporate company you can work for, pretty much. And she said, well, if you're going to live here rent free, you got to do something around the house. I was like, okay, what do you want me to do? She says, well, you love food, you love being outside. Why not start a garden? I have no experience doing anything like this.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, fine. Went to Home Depot, bought some raised beds and tomatoes, cucumbers, whatever. And from the moment I first tasted that tomato off the vine, the literal fruits of my labor, I was like, holy shit, this is the best. Like, why didn't
Yeah.
anyone tell me about this? This is amazing. And from there, it just grew and grew and grew. 3 years at home, I was growing everything you can imagine. And it wasn't until I moved out of the suburbs and into New York City, into a 600 square foot apartment with no
Yeah.
backyard and very little green space, where I was like, oh my gosh, like I'm going through withdrawal here. And that's when I bought 100 houseplants. And that's what started the whole Instagram, the houseplant craze. And this was about 2017, kind of pre the big major houseplant push that started post pandemic.
Yeah.
And it was awesome time to be in the city, some amazing creators, and from there people started asking me to design their spaces inside and out, and now we're here.
That's so awesome. Where were you finding these plant shops in the city?
All over. I mean, the
Yeah.
first one that really gave me some good opportunities was The Sill, which is a classic name now in the plant shop world, right? And
Yeah.
Eliza's been very supportive of me. She's the CEO there, and I taught some workshops there and would take clients plant shopping there because it's cute inside, So
Yeah.
that was one of
Yeah.
my favorites. And then I got into a little deeper into it. Da Hing Plant Shop in the Lower East Side, Chinatown area was amazing. Loved it. Still there. Still use them all the time for installations. Greenery
That's awesome.
Unlimited in Greenpoint, which is no longer there, unfortunately. I don't know. Crest Hardware was another favorite of mine. It's now closing too. So
Yeah.
it's tough out there for plant shops, but I tried to
Yeah.
support them as much as I could while I was in New York City.
Yeah. I lived in New York as well, and I did not get into plants. I've lived in Florida now for 4 years and moved from the city to here. And I mean, I remember the flower district, but maybe it just wasn't on my radar, but I just don't remember in Chelsea, like ever seen. I think that I would stop. I think I would have stopped and maybe been curious then, but all good though. I'd love to hear that. I can only imagine because my apartment was incredibly small in New York. I could not imagine having
Hmm.
100 houseplants. Like this is
100
like,
houseplants and 600 square feet. It was tough. It was tough.
yeah. Maria over at Growing Joy with Plants, she as well talks about like all these plants in her apartment in New York. And I'm just like, this is so insane. Where did that move from that journey from the house plants into back to really farming again? You left the city or did you start doing installations and more landscape stuff while you were still in New York?
It's funny you say that because, like, I'd always been very interested in the landscaping side because it was one of those things I hadn't done yet, right? Like,
Yeah.
I was doing small terraces and rooftops in New York City, just kind of getting by with it because it wasn't my main expertise. And it wasn't until I started taking classes at the New York Botanical Garden in the Bronx, one of my favorite places ever. Their adult education programs are incredible, and they have a pretty robust online course selection as well, which is great for
Yeah.
anyone here who wants to level up some of their plant knowledge. But taking some of those courses in drafting and drawing, and then plant science, soil science, perennials, like all these different things that kind of expanded my knowledge. I was like, okay, I feel really much more confident in this now. And then just like when I started with the houseplant side, all it is just starting friends and family who need work done. And like, hey,
Yeah.
listen, you pay for the plants, I'll do the work for free. Just know that I'm probably going to mess up and I'm going to learn along the way. Right.
Right.
And once you do that, you get some pictures taken, you make some videos educating people, they find you. They're going to come find you. And that was when the landscaping really took off. This was about like 2019, 2020. And it was around that time that I was like, oh my goodness, like I need to hire a full time employee
Yeah,
and
that's
I got
so
to start
awesome.
expanding. And then Instant Dream Home came knocking, and it was landscaping at a major scale.
Yeah.
So it's been a beautiful journey, and now it's really focusing on native plants, edible gardening, anything that is beneficial for the.
Yeah. How long during that journey did you become a vegan?
So that actually happened when I was still in New York City. So I had gotten all these plants, and I was so committed to taking care of the plants inside and out. And I was like, huh, like, if I care so much about this, I'm just consuming it right now. I'm not doing anything
Right.
to protect it. Let me start caring more about the environment. And it was the environmentalism draw that kind of expanded my realm a little bit. It was like, okay, plants and plant adjacent things like my food choices or my transportation choices, what have you, they all play a role in this idea and this umbrella of environmentalism. So that started around end of 2019, and I've been fully vegan ever since.
It's amazing. It's so awesome. I love that that journey like really hit home for you and you're like, well, what am I doing and the impact that my fingerprint is putting on this earth? I've heard that you carry your own silverware at places so that you don't use.
Everywhere.
Yes, I think this is so admirable. You've been working with Earth
Yes.
Justice, raising funds. What exactly does Earth Justice do?
So Earthjustice is one of my favorite organizations on their advisory council, helping them make content around the policy and the legal side of the environment. Because unfortunately, policy is not the most sexy thing in the world when it comes to talking about these things, but it's the thing that has the biggest impact. So Earthjustice is an environmental nonprofit law firm that represents folks who have been wronged by the climate crisis or are fighting to protect our planet in many different ways. And I've done a bit of work with them both in New York and most recently in Hawaii with a little bit more of a hands-on kind of journalistic point of view, visiting communities and visiting people who have been affected by agriculture, who have been affected by tourism, who've been affected by militarization in their areas. And they're not just affecting those people's communities and lives, but the environment. And in Hawaii, and the Aina, the land, their connection with the land. So it was an incredibly humbling experience. And I look forward to sharing that content in the next month or so here for some of those adventures. But Earthjustice is just so amazing at really connecting the idea that, hey, this isn't just protecting this unknown environmental cause. These are people's lives here who are
Right.
being impacted, and telling those people stories is how I can help with my platform. So that will be coming out pretty soon on Instagram, just sharing some of those adventures, and then also going to be doing some work down in the Everglades, highlighting some issues happening down in Florida. So I'll keep you
Yeah.
posted.
If you mind sharing the 4 E's of environmentalism that you shared with your TED talk, because I
The
felt like
four E's.
those were some very good talking points.
Yes. So this was a TEDx talk that I did last year now, and it revolved around how we can use plants as a stepping stone towards sustainability, because that was my journey, right? I would never have gotten here as an environmentalist if it wasn't for this introduction to plants. So I kind of channeled my inner Master Yoda here for anyone who's a Star Wars fan, because Master Yoda talks about this path to the dark side, and kind of the flow and progression that it takes. And I said, okay, what if we took this similar kind of progression? What did that look like for me when it came to my own enlightenment? So the first E was experience. Experience in nature leads to excitement about nature, right? We got to be there to see it, to feel excited about it. And then once we have that excitement, we're like, wait. I'm excited about this thing, but this thing is going away. We're hurting this thing. And that's where the excitement about nature leads to empathy for nature. And then the final piece of that puzzle is you have the empathy, but it has to lead to action. So if empathy for nature leads to efforts to protect nature, we're going to have a much better world. But it all starts with that experience. You have to be in it, which is why I'm so adamant about people living in cities to get houseplants, kids to get exposure to nature as much as possible. Because how can I expect you living in a 500 square foot apartment in New York City whose feet may have never touched the grass in the last 2 months? Why would I expect you to care about what
Yeah.
I'm caring about? You're not seeing it. You're not there.
Right.
You're not
Yeah.
smelling the air. You're not touching the trees. Like, you need to be there. You need to see it. You need to experience it. And then that's going to grow a desire to protect it.
We feel this emotional connection to plants. Like it's just much more than
Hmm.
a hobby. And it can really be a reflection of our lives. And I've experienced that personally in my own journey. I was a caregiver to my best friend, to my husband, who was dying of pancreatic cancer. That's why we actually left New
Mm.
York City. And I was introduced to plants at that time. And it just opened up a whole new world of relating and grace and giving myself grace and nurturing my own self while I was caring for these plants. So I'd love that you
Mm.
share that, because it is so true. Like the minute that, just like you had said, your client, her Fendi outfit, I don't know who is Fendi, but and her, beautiful clothes, just putting her whole face in the ground to really
To
feel that
connect.
impact, to connect. Yeah. And
Yeah.
that's such a big thing that we're missing in this world right now, is connection.
Yeah, I think you're so right, Wade. And I'll add to that because I know you are this kind of person too. But nurture.
Mm.
Men need to learn how to nurture. I say men intentionally
Yeah.
because unfortunately in our society today, it's this like hyper masculine, like I'm gonna conquer and destroy, and that's just not it.
Right.
And I think that we'd be all better off if we all learned that, hey, like nurturing is not something that just women do. This is
Right.
something that we can do, and it doesn't have to be with something very specific. It can be anything. And for me, I found it in plants. And if
Yeah.
that's what slows me down and gives me that sense of empathy and connection, I think that's a great.
Plants brought me to you, but I think that your dismantle of toxic masculinity is what kept me, and what has drawn me to you, Nick, because I just think it's so this misbelief that men aren't nurturing, that men, can't be vegan, that you can't be strong and muscular if you're a vegan. And I read some of the comments that you receive, and I'm just like, where are these men living? Like, under what rock? Like, this is very scary that, we have
Yeah.
this concept, a man doesn't do this or that, or even get in the garden. And I know plenty of heterosexual men that are in their gardens loving their life and connecting with nature. So I have
Totally.
to say I really appreciate you for taking that stand, especially on your social media.
No, thanks, Wade. It's something that I'm very passionate about because, I coming from a sports background, like a lot of it was that kind of like macho, like I'm gonna be bigger, stronger, better, and like that's fine, right?
Yeah.
But I think we need to grow more than that. And for me, it was how can I not just do it for myself, but be a role model for that next generation? Because for for me as a child, my role models were Michael Jordan and Steve Irwin. There was no
Yeah.
one in the environmental space who I was focusing on for plants or anything like that. And if I can go out there and be someone who is viewed as like cool and masculine and someone who also can care about the flowers in their garden, show a young boy that that's okay, that's
Yeah.
acceptable. I think that's a great thing.
Yeah. Uh, that leads us into like Farmer Nick Jr. You started this whole program. Now, Nick, this isn't like your first time with production and TV. You have been on Netflix.
Yeah, the TV space is it's very tough space to be in. I was in LA for quite a long time and it was a fun journey. It's something that I hope I'll do again and working on a few things here and there that may be sprouting next year. But it's something that I think is a great medium to just get people interested,
Yeah.
right? It's got to be entertaining, it's got to be fun. And then if they learn something in the process, that's great, but you got to lead with the entertainment. So with Instant Dream Home, it was this whole like, how can I build a home in 12 hours? And that alone is just such a monumental feat that it's already entertaining. But for kids, how do you scale that back? How do you make it something that is funny, silly, costumes, jokes for the parents to watch as well and appreciate? That was kind of the impetus for creating my own thing, which is now on YouTube. And I'm pretty happy about how the initial launch has been going and just trying to get some more content up on Instagram to show people like some of the clips from it and just being a goof of dressed as a sunflower, educating human about plants is quite a silly concept, but I think it gets the point across.
Yeah, well, and I love too that you did the whole DIY to create the outfit. You didn't just like pre-order it and have it sent to you.
Oh, of
This is
course.
yeah, and this is what I think is so great too that you talk about thrifting and that's a whole nother topic of masculinity that like also, men don't shop or talk about thrifting and I love that yes you do. Like we can all enjoy and it's also giving back to the environment. There's so many thousands
Exactly.
and thousands of pounds of clothes just thrown in the dumpster day minute after minute.
Yeah, it's the more I got involved in the world of environmentalism, the more kind of subject areas I became immersed in
Yeah.
because I didn't know about thrifting. I didn't know
Yeah.
about veganism. I didn't know about my skincare routine or EV driving or any of that stuff, right?
Right.
I was like, I'm just here for the plants. And then you kind of add a new skill. I feel like I'm in like a video game where you're like learning a new move. And it's like, oh,
Right.
here's my thrifting move and here's my diet moves. Like, and who knows what the next one's going to be for me. When I become a homeowner, maybe it's going to be solar and gray water systems that I'm going to get into. Who knows? But
Right.
you start adding all these skills, and the thrifting is one of my favorites because when you live in a big city like New York and LA, the thrift shops are amazing. You got
Yeah.
people getting rid of the craziest, beautiful items for whatever reason, and you can build a beautiful wardrobe that way. So it's
Yeah.
been fun to mess around there, and I'm excited to continue my thrifting adventures and share more of them online.
It's awesome. What about your houseplant collection? Like being bi-coastal, do you have a collection that you bring with you or
You
that
know,
special plant that you're like, I'm not getting rid of this one?
so it's funny you say that. When I moved out of New York during the pandemic, I went to California. It sold 99% of my plants and raised money for charity. That was tough. That was not
Yeah,
easy.
I'm sure.
When I got to LA, vitalized my plant collection. And then when I left, I sold 99% and, same deal. So I've got probably 5 plants from the original that are still kicking at
Wow.
mom and dad's house. One in LA I got
Yeah.
to go back for, but it's hard being this bi-coastal, and traveling as much as I have has been really difficult on my plant collection. Would it be easier if I owned a home? For sure. But buying a
Yeah.
home, it's a whole separate story. And so we're working on it. That's the next goal right now, is to really put down some more permanent roots. Obviously, I'll still be back and forth between New York and LA at some degree, but being able to have my own garden, my own house plants, my own landscape would be such a liberating thing for me.
Yeah. What is your favorite genius of plant?
Oh, this is so hard. I mean, houseplant wise, like I love alocasia. And I
Yeah.
know alocasia are tricky for some folks. Everyone's got a different genus that's trickier for them than others,
Yeah.
depending on your environment, your style. But like alocasia and I just get along. Like we thrive
Mm.
together, and I keep them pretty well maintained. Haven't had too many spider mite issues, which I know they're very prone to. But alocasia are some of my favorites.
Is there a plant that you've unalived but like you continue to buy it and try to do it again?
There's always one, and I think many people listening to this will relate, with the maiden hair fern. She is a fickle queen, and
Uh,
to be honest, actually, you'll like this. So I was hiking last fall in Zion National Park, doing the Narrows Trail, which you go through this giant river. It's amazing. You're in Slot Canyon, and all along the wall is the most beautiful, lush maiden hair fern I've ever seen. And I'm like,
it's amazing.
maybe I'm forcing it, right? And I talk about it in my book all the time. Don't force it. Replicate the conditions as
Right,
best you
right,
can, how that plant would grow in its native environment. Now, I'm not putting a Slot Canyon River in my home, but
right.
there was a fountain at one of the homes I was renting in LA, trickling down water in a shady, cooler spot, and there was made of rocks, and there was a notch in the rock there. So I said, you know what? I took this dying maidenhair fern and I just stuck it in there. Nothing,
That's
no
awesome.
soil, nothing. And it's still there, thriving,
That's
doing
awesome.
its thing.
That's so cool. Yeah, as a plant lover, I continue to throw my plants into my backyard. I mean, I live in Florida, so
Well,
I'm
in
I'm
Florida, I mean,
nine
you could
days.
do
So yeah,
that.
yeah. Because I'm like, why am I struggling? I have lights. It's like so humid. I have the door open on the patio, but the minute I throw it in the backyard, flourish. I mean, my backyard looks like
Mhm.
a crazy jungle. I'm getting married in October. Well, we're having our wedding in October. My husband and I are already married, but we're having our wedding in October, and I've planted
Nice.
like all these monstera elbows and huge, and I'm
Oh,
getting huge
beautiful.
leaves. So I'm going to cut those all off the morning of the
Ah,
wedding and put
amazing.
those as, yeah, on all the
Oh, I love
tables.
that.
And yeah, it will be nice. Well, talking about DIYs, there's some pretty cool DIYs that I love. The Plant Coach, The Beginner's Guide to Caring for Plants. This one I actually did during the Christmas. It's the
The succulent
succulent
wreath.
wreath. It's so cool. It's still living. I now put it actually in a pot because they were growing out of control. But the other thing that I would love to try, planter. How did you come up with this?
So I had seen a couple people who were doing like coffee table planters with glass, where they just
Yeah,
basically just use the table as a planter terrarium, right? I was like, that's nice. I don't love the idea of glass because I don't want to necessarily be looking at all the soil all the time. And how can I make it look a little bit more refined with a wood palette instead? So I called my buddy Eric, who was on the show with me, who's a carpenter, master carpenter, amazing artist, fun guy. And I said, hey, I got this idea. Like, what if we took a live edge of a piece of wood and we mirrored it together on a coffee table so it has a river, and we are able to create a basin of some kind that can house those plants without ever seeing anything underneath. He goes, I'm on it. I got an idea. So we worked together to create this design. And what Eric did is he built this reservoir that goes underneath that is hidden from view. You can't see it unless you're underneath.
yeah.
And that basin is slightly pitched. slightly, just a couple degrees. So you could actually put soil into it, water it, and there's a drainage hole where the water would come out.
That's amazing.
Little hidden tricks. Now, you don't have to
Yeah.
do that. In some of those examples, what I did, I just purely cached it and
Yeah,
just
yeah.
popped in a couple pothos or philodendron. Looks beautiful. You could even put a Tupperware little cups of water in there and put your florals for that. And you'll never see them because the flowers and
Yeah.
the foliage come forth and really soften that edge even more. But it's such a beautiful piece that is currently in storage right now.
Oh,
But I
really?
can't wait to get my,
Yeah.
yeah, because it's all my stuff's still in LA while we're house hunting. So we are eager to get that back into the fold. And it's just such a nice piece because it's malleable, right? And when
Yeah,
fall
yeah.
comes around, I can put beautiful mums and marigolds and dried florals for that kind of autumn look. When winter comes around, I can put poinsettia in there, right? So it gives you
Yeah.
such flexibility. And it's the piece that most people, when they come to the house, are like, what is that and where can I
Yeah.
buy it? And I'm like, nope,
Well,
this one's custom.
yeah, the juxtaposition of the wood with the plants is just so beautiful. It just makes whatever's in there just pop.
Absolutely. And fun story about the wood. The wood is from one of my favorite companies in Los Angeles called Angel City Lumber. And we actually worked out of their workshop to build this. And what they do special is that they salvage fallen trees in the LA area. So these are not trees that are cut down from other forests that are existing.
Yeah.
These are fallen trees from the street or people's homes. And this was a native California, I think it was California sycamore that we use there. And it's just absolutely beautiful.
Yeah, I love it. I love it. Nick, what can people look forward to in the near future for you from you? You have any projects that you want to talk about or that you can talk
Good
about?
question. Yeah, so nothing I can talk about just yet. Some things are in development. Hopefully, get those moving pretty soon. But was really excited to be launching the Farmer Nick Jr. Hopefully, we'll be doing season 3 with my sponsors for that. Espoma and Fiskars were huge in helping bring that to life. And then working on a couple new book proposals. My agent's been on me about getting those in, one in the kids arena, one in the adult, a little more food focused. So we'll see where those end up, but really excited for what's to come here. And then obviously, if I'm able to buy a house in the next 6 months, that's just going to present a whole new world of opportunity for content, building, solar, gray water, all these other things that are falling under that idea of an eco green.
Yeah, that's great. And where can everyone find you?
You can find me on my website, farmernick.com, and then at farmernick on Instagram and TikTok. And I'm happy to answer any plant questions you may have.
And the kids show can be found on YouTube, you said.
Yes, Farmer Nick Jr. on YouTube. Check it out. Ages 4 and up, and hopefully the parents will also get a laugh out of it too.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Nick. I really appreciate you coming on. As you were talking about the lumber, I remember like one of the first reels that I saw of yours, and you were going through picking up wood stumps all around, carrying them. I was like, this poor guy's going to break his back. What is he doing all by himself, grabbing all this lumber? But again, another way that you think about what you can use just right in your backyard, or it's amazing the innovation that you have in all of your plant projects. I think it's awesome. Again, thank you so much. I really appreciate you. When the next book comes out, please come back. I'd love to talk with you again. I appreciate it.
I'll be there. Thank you so much, Wade. I appreciate you.
Awesome. Have a great day.
See ya.
Bye. All right, so I'm gonna Hi, plant people. Thank you so much for tuning in to the 22nd episode of the Plants by Wadley podcast. It was such a pleasure chatting with Nick Cutsumpas, Farmer Nick. He's such a cool guy. For episode 23, in honor of our Sip and Succulent summer tour that we've been doing, in sponsorship with our swag bags from Miracle Grow, I'm going to be creating an open air terrarium. So make sure to check that out on YouTube as well. Please be kind to yourself and others. And if you want that plant, buy that plant.
Also wanted to say shout out and congratulations to Susie, Happy Place Plants, Florida, who won the Strange Substrate giveaway from last week. Thank you all for listening. Bye.